Well, look, it's been a seat held by the Nats for around 100 years, and I believe the Nats are the best served to keep representing this area because people don't have to worry about the Nationals' position on the coal mining industry or on the farming industry or on tourism jobs. There's no question about our support for those industries. Whereas Labor lately, they've been trying to say they support the industry again, they're putting up a coal miner, but we've just seen this week with the continued psychotherapy between Joel Fitzgibbon and Chris Bowen that they're not quite on the same page, and they just can't be trusted to protect people's jobs.
People in the Hunter seem to love Joel Fitzgibbon. You've been there quite a bit. Do you have that same status? You are a Queenslander after all.
Well, they didn't love him much last time.
He didn't lose though, did he?
His job. I think there's a great degree of cynicism here about Joel. I mean, the Fitzgibbon family. I mean, there's been only 3 families that have represented the federal seat of Hunter for about the last 100 years, and so the Fitzgibbon family is well loved and a part of this region. But there's a lot of cynicism about Joel now because he only has started defending and fighting for other people's jobs when he nearly lost his own job. Before the last federal election, he was out talking down coal, saying we've got a transition and it's all going to be over. And then he had a come-to-Jesus moment in the foxhole, nearly lost his job, and he converted. He converted to the cause of coal mining. So you've got to ask the question, do you want someone who protects your jobs through good times and bad times and all the time, or just only in the times when they think it suits their own political purposes?
Look, I don't know whether that conversion has been as stark as you just laid out, but I'll let Joel defend himself, and he has plenty of platforms to do so on this program. Now, I know jobs are the number one issue there at the moment, but we're also living in a pandemic. We see vaccine hesitancy really high in this country. Is anyone talking to you there about the lack of incentive provided by the government to get a vaccine?
Oh, look, no one's raised with that with me on pre-poll. Look, you're right to say there are some who are hesitant about getting a vaccine, but my view is that we'll still see the vast majority of Australians get vaccinated over the next year, just as Australians get vaccinated for most other diseases. And I'm confident we will hit a so-called herd immunity type figure. We're very lucky in this country not to.
Are you confident that will be by the end of the year?
Oh, no, I'm not going to put a figure on it or a date on it. I don't know.
Well, the budget
That'll obviously
has.
depend on the continuing. Yeah, well, the budget's got to make an estimate for its own figures and calculations.
But you're not confident about that estimate,
that is just an estimate.
And that government target being reached?
Well, it's just an estimate. I want to see it as soon as we can, But there's obviously factors that are outside the government's control in this equation, especially the continued supply of vaccines from overseas. And what we've just got to do is make sure there's alternative options, there's alternative routes. That's what we're doing today with the announcement of further progression of mRNA vaccines being made here.
Yep.
We've just got to take steps every day to get better at it, and we'll get there eventually.
Well, we keep on hearing that, and you're the latest government MP to say that. We heard it from Greg Hunt. He keeps on saying that, mRNA vaccines will be available by the end of the year for all Australians. Does that mean you're cutting loose AstraZeneca?
Well, no, it doesn't, but I do and always have been a very strong proponent of choice. I was on your show a few months ago debating the merits or otherwise of AstraZeneca. And without saying those words, Laura, there were the concerns I raised have proven to be somewhat correct. But even back then, I was saying and continue to say these are very rare occurrences with AstraZeneca. It's just the point here should be you should consult with your GP if you're concerned. The government's obviously issued guidelines, especially for younger Australians, about the vaccine. But these are very rare cases. They're just serious ones.
What is the incentive,
like
even of getting an mRNA vaccine? The Prime Minister's saying he can't even... What is the incentive, even with an mRNA vaccine? The government, even the Prime Minister was saying that, really, he can't even guarantee freedom of movement within this country at the moment.
Well, I'm dead set against any vaccine passports. I have a different view on the Prime Minister from this. For internal travel, we should not have papers, please, questions for internal travel in this country. That has got to end, and the sooner it ends, the better. and I won't be. I know many of my Nationals colleagues will not be supporting any kind of rollout of vaccine passports in this country. It's not part of our nation, not part of our history. It's been very unfortunate that the border closures we've had and experienced, but they have to be make sure they are concentrated as a temporary measure during the height of the pandemic. Once we're through this and when enough people are vaccinated, we should have no restrictions on the freedom of movement in this country, because that's one of the birthrights you have as an Australian.
But that's still not agreed to. The premiers haven't agreed to it, and there's no National Cabinet meeting for 2 weeks. Shouldn't this be a first order issue?
Well, I don't know if it's a first order issue right now, Laura, because we're not fully vaccinated.
We had a lockdown just 2 weeks ago.
When we get to that. Yeah, and maybe there will still be a need for that. I'm not disputing the merit of doing those things while the pandemic is running out of control. But once
Sorry, can I just pick up on that? So you think these lockdowns are still justified at the moment? With one or two cases?
In limited ways. It all depends on the circumstances, Laura. I think there has been an overreaction to some of the outbreaks in recent months. But what I'm not doing is dismissing the fact that there is a need sometimes for restrictions to be in place if there is an outbreak. I think, and I've said for months, that I'd prefer those restrictions to be based on a very localised level, not across whole states, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but let's make them as local as possible and do what we've done successfully over this past year in controlling the virus. And that's been done here in New South Wales. That's what the New South Wales government has done, and it's why people should elect the Nationals here to continue that sensible approach where there are some restrictions placed in when an outbreak occurs, but we don't have a blunt tool and lock up everybody in the whole state.
That was an impressive segue. I'll let you have that, Matt Canavan. Good luck for this weekend.
I was waiting for you to interrupt me, but I appreciate that.
Never, Matt Canavan. You enjoy it, I'm sure.